Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into today's video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next 8 to 10 days. In today's video, this takes us to around the 19th of February, so going on into the third week of the month. Got a bit of a discrepancy relating to next week's weather. We could get easterly winds coming in next week. I don't think they'll be particularly cold. The continent is looking very mild, actually, for the time of year. As we go through next week. So even if winds do go down round to the east, I don't think it'll be particularly cold, but will be cooler, of course, in a westerly. And the ECMWF wants to bring in a westerly next week, whereas the GFS wants to bring us this easterly. So a little bit of a discrepancy actually between the two models for next week's weather. For this week, rather high pressure dominating until around Friday, when we may get a band of rain coming through. Share the charts in a moment. Before we get on back, just about the ads. There's links to articles on most pages at gasweathers.com. Have a browse through widgets, any articles that you're interested in. Just click through. You had to go and read those articles. So very quickly, just starting with the central England temperature for February so far, provisionally up to the 8th of February. So for the first week, we're coming out at 1.9, which is a anomaly of 2.5 degrees below average. So pretty cold start to February. First week being significantly colder than average, probably the coldest week, maybe since, say, the end of January 2013. So quite a significantly cold week in the past week. But I think that will get a bit of an improvement, a bit of a push up actually, as we go through into this week, because we're going to bring some slightly less cold air in across the country that we already have done now. Have a look at the 500 millibar height anomaly flow charts for the next 7 to 10 days. We've got the ECMWF here on the left, the GFS is over on the right. 500 millibars is an area in the atmosphere where high pressure, low pressure are being moved around by the jet stream running above. So we see it on both the charts. We've got a very, very deep trough of low pressure in the north and the east United States again. So a really cold plunge coming up for them this week and into the weekend and on into next week as well. And then that runs out, the jet stream runs out into the Atlantic, something like that. Notice that, quite interestingly, fights look as though they're falling across more central and southern parts of the state. So actually, I think as we're going through the next week to 10 days, we're probably going to find things turning colder in the sort of interior of the states, and even down in some southern states. States like Texas may start to see some quite significant snow coming through. We're sort of pulling in more of a southerly jet stream, enhancing the southern branch of the jet stream from the Pacific, and that's running in across the states, something like that. And I think over time, that could well sort of undercut the cold air that's sitting in the north and the east, and we may get some quite significant snow across many, many parts of the United States, actually even down into, say, the southern states as we go through the next 7 to 10 days. But I digress with that. For our sort of situation, we've got this area of high pressure then sitting out to the east of the country on both the GFS and the ECMWF. So we're not that far apart. Really, it's just that the ECMWF has more of an influence from the Atlantic coming in, so we're basically staying a westerly flow, whereas the GFS, or the midnight run of the GFS anyway, wants to have this high pressure a little bit more influential, sort of pull in more of a easterly type southeasterly wind. But there isn't much in it, and both models could go to one another. So we may finish up with an easterly next week, although I don't think it'll be particularly cold, or we may keep this westerly flow sort of coming through. Here's the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks, and we can see that we're above average with the upper air temperatures. Now we've changed the source of the air within the high pressure. Instead of having cold northerlies, we're sort of bringing in an Atlantic flow. So although this is moderated, of course, these are upper air temperatures very mild, but down on the surface under high pressure, it will be cooler. Nevertheless, we have increased the temperature. The 30-year temperature average is indicated by this thick red line here. And when you see us go through towards the weekend, this is the 13th here, Friday the 13th. It's just there. As we go towards the weekend, we do get a bit of a drop in the temperatures going back towards the average. And notice a few precipitation spikes coming through as well. So we could bring in an area of low pressure around Friday and Saturday, and possibly turning it a little bit wet across many parts of the country. And then as we go beyond that, the idea is really for the temperature, upper air temperature anyway, to sort of trend upwards again, and that's as high pressure builds back in. But the source of the air of that will be very interesting to see whether we're coming from the east or the west. Either way, it doesn't look as though it's going to be particularly cold. So it looks like we're in for a fairly sort of mildish spell for the next week to 10 days. Although if we get an easterly, it will feel chilly, it'll feel dank and sort of miserable. Of course, the upper air temperatures are moderated at this time of year with an easterly flow. The temperature anomaly for the coming week shows that we're around average now. We've lost those deep blue curves that have been across the country during this cold spell. Still a little bit below average, I suppose, for England and Wales, but this will trend upwards more towards the red colours over the next couple of days. And generally, I think we're going to be around average for the next week, the 8th to 16th of February. And we're going to be driving average again as well, another driving average week. So have a look at the generic charts, and here's the low pressure coming in on Thursday with the GFS model under a ridge of high pressure still for Thursday, but as we go through into Friday, that low pressure comes in across the country, could produce some quite heavy rain in the west, and that could spread across all parts of the country on Friday. So that's the first sort of significant heavy rain that we've had for quite a long time actually coming in on Friday, and that sort of is still over the country as we go through into Saturday, but low pressure is stalling there across the country. So Friday into Saturday Valentine's Day, of course, could be quite wet with outbreaks of rain coming across the country. Now beyond that, that low pressure sort of slinks away to the south, and then that allows high pressure to build over Scandinavia on the midnight run of the GFS anyway. So by the time we get through to 168 hours, Monday the 16th of February, a week away, we're bringing in this easterly wind. Now this isn't a particularly cold wind, so don't get excited and think that this is sort of the depths of winter coming in. Fortunately, depending on whether you like it cold or not, the continent isn't particularly cold. In fact, it's very mild really for what it could be at that particular point in the year, around the middle of February. So that's pretty mild easterly coming in. If you follow the ice bars back, the source of the flow is from somewhere around Italy and the Adriatic. So it's not a particularly cold easterly, but of course it will feel pretty miserable. There'll be a lot of cloud and damp, sort of dreary weather being dragged in with that. As we go through into Tuesday the 17th, again, the idea is that the high pressure over Scandinavia is still relatively influential, but as we move through into Wednesday the 18th, we get some ridging coming in across the country. So it's basically an idea of high pressure sort of takes over into the third week of the month. And we end up very slack really as we go through to day 10, Thursday the 19th of February, with high pressure to the east and sort of in this not particularly cold southerly to southeasterly flow. At the very least, though, there could be frost and maybe some quite widespread fog with that sort of a pattern, but it turns drier again after that sort of unsettled interlude around Friday and Saturday. The Easterlies though wants to bring the westerly, so as we move through to Sunday, we're trying to build some high pressure over Scandinavia, trying to block off the Atlantic, but these areas of low pressure are too powerful. So a week away, 168 hours when it's 16, the west to southwesterly flows coming in with outbreaks. This is quite an unsettled run actually from the Easterlies. We bring quite an active cold front across the country on Tuesday the 17th. That will bring some heavy rain, and the Atlantic is properly breaking through. And then we end up on day 10 in this southwesterly flow with high pressure to the south, low pressure to the north, bringing in this west to southwesterly flow. And that could bring some quite heavy rain up to the north and west of the country as well. So a little bit of a discrepancy, or quite a big discrepancy actually, between the detail of these models. They want to try and build some high pressure around Scandinavia in around a week's time, so Sunday, Monday, some high pressure wants to try and build over Scandinavia. The Easterlies sort of runs away with that idea and puts us into an easterly, and then has the high pressure dominating through the third week of February, albeit not a particularly cold area of high pressure. I have to emphasise that we're not talking about severe cold air coming in from the east, but pretty dank, pretty miserable, chilly conditions would occur with the GFS setup, whereas the Easterlies has a go at building that high pressure over Scandinavia. Doesn't really come off, and we just end up in quite an unsettled westerly southwesterly flow for the third week of the month. That brings quite a lot of heavy rain, so a discrepancy there, but I think overall we're probably looking at some rain on Friday and Saturday After that, I would suggest that it's going to stay pretty dry. I don't foresee a very wet spell setting up. The ECM could be overdoing that Atlantic flow this one. It'd be interesting how it plays out. That's it for now, and thanks for watching.